Have you ever noticed that the people who drain you the most are often the same ones you tried hardest to be kind to? They don't scream. They don't insult you directly. They manipulate. Silently, subtly, precisely. They distort the truth. They smirk when you fail. They forget to respond. They plant seeds of doubt in your mind. And when you finally snap, they look at you like you're the problem. It could be a coworker, a family member, someone you once loved. Whoever they are, the result is the same. You walk away exhausted, still trying to keep the peace. Because that's what you were taught. Be understanding. Be nice. Be good. But Machiavelli would never advise such naivete. He'd ask you, coldly, are you being kind? Or are you simply allowing someone to erode you, piece by piece? In a world where manipulators thrive on your emotions, kindness without strategy is suicide. Here's the brutal truth. You cannot fix someone who has no intention of changing. The only real move is to deny them access to your mind. And the first step in reclaiming power is to unlearn everything you've ever believed about being good. Toxic people don't just want to hurt you. They want to observe how you react. They don't feed on reason. They feed on your emotional output. They thrive on your predictability. They know you'll reply. They know you'll explain. They know you can't stand being misunderstood. That's the trap. They don't want resolution. They want a reaction. Every time you say, "That's not what I meant." Every time you write a long message trying to clarify. Every time you forgive, hoping they'll finally get it. You're walking straight into the trap they set for you. They act hurt, you soften. They blame, you apologize. They go silent, you get anxious. They explode, you calm them down. Every move you make is information. Every emotional twitch is a crack they exploit further. If you don't control your emotions, someone else will control you through them. You might say, "I just want to keep the peace. I don't want to make things worse. I can't be harsh." But the reality is, you're not keeping peace. You're delaying a war inside yourself. And while you're hoping they'll change, they're refining the art of hurting you more quietly. You think you're doing the right thing, but what you're doing is what's expected. And what's expected is what gets controlled. Machiavelli wrote, "The most successful rulers are not the most virtuous. They are the ones who understand how the crowd reacts and control it from the shadows." Toxic people instinctively understand this. They don't need your loyalty. They just need your hesitation. And their ultimate victory is convincing you that your reaction is your obligation. You have to answer. You have to explain. You have to keep them calm. The truth is, you don't have to do any of it. You can stay still. You can walk away. You can shut the door without warning, without guilt. What they fear most isn't your anger. It's your lack of reaction. Your silence is the most powerful counterstrike. No noise, no effort, no explanation. It's the first signal that you've changed position. You've seen their blueprint, and you're no longer moving by it. Reaction is weakness. Intention is power. And strategic silence is domination. Boundaries are not emotional. They are not moral. They are not a cry for respect. They are a strategy. Toxic people don't cross your boundaries because they don't understand them. They cross them because they know you won't enforce them. They test. They push. They wait. And every time you flinch, explain, or soften the blow, you reinforce their power. You've been told your whole life. Saying no is rude. Setting limits makes you selfish. Turning someone away is unkind. That kind of thinking was designed to make you easily manipulated. You were raised to be agreeable, to nod, to adapt, to absorb discomfort quietly, to take on burdens that weren't yours, in the name of being a good person. But here's the harsh truth. Good people get used. Strategic people get respected. So how do you start reclaiming control? It begins with absolute clarity. Ask yourself coldly, honestly, who drains me? Who ignores my time, my energy, my limits? Who respects me only when it's convenient for them? Once you know the answers, stop asking for permission to protect yourself. Begin setting boundaries without guilt, without negotiation, without emotion. Let your no be clean. Let your distance be quiet but final. Let your actions speak where your words once failed. Tell the needy friend, I'm not available at your convenience anymore. Tell the demanding coworker, I don't respond to work messages after hours. Tell the family member addicted to drama, I won't engage with negativity today. Then stop. No long explanation. No nervous apology. No overcompensating smile. Because here's what toxic people fear. A person who no longer plays the game. They want loopholes. They want negotiation. They want your soft tone, your apologetic stance, your over-explaining. Take that away, and they lose leverage. No is not the start of a debate. It is the end of one. If someone gets upset about your boundary, that is confirmation that the boundary was necessary. They will say you've changed. They will accuse you of being cold, selfish, distant. Good. That means it's working. People who benefited from your lack of boundaries will never celebrate the moment you grow a spine. But they don't have to. Because your job is no longer to make everyone comfortable. Your job is to protect your peace. That peace, your energy, your time, your emotional space, is your territory. And like any kingdom, it must be guarded with discipline and defended with silence. The moment you stop explaining yourself, you stop bleeding power. A boundary is not a fence. It is a blade. And the sharper it is, the less it has to be used. Toxic people don't need to yell. They don't need to insult you directly. They simply know where your cracks are. And they press just hard enough. They don't fight openly. They operate like chess players. Calculated, patient, deadly. They weaponize the subtle. The backhanded compliment. Wow, you finally did something right. The guilt trip. Guess I'll just suffer alone since you're too busy for me. The silent treatment. A day of silence just to make you question your worth. The blame shift. I wouldn't have done that if you hadn't provoked me. The triangulation. Turning others against you quietly while pretending to stay neutral. It's not random. It's not accidental. It's psychological warfare. And the battlefield is your nervous system. You start second-guessing yourself. You overthink every word. You apologize when you did nothing wrong. You feel like you're the crazy one. This is emotional programming, and they're experts at it. But here's the key. They can only run the program if you keep reacting the same way. Every time you get defensive, every time you try to justify your feelings, every time you plead to be understood, you are feeding the loop. They don't want to resolve anything. They want to keep you stuck. They want you on edge, because an anxious mind is easier to manipulate. They win when you lose emotional control. They lose when you stay in command. So here's how you break the pattern. 1. Neutralize their game. When they bait you, go still. Respond with calm neutrality. That's your opinion. I see. Noted. Short. Flat. Undramatic. They can't escalate what doesn't react. 2. Delay the reaction. Toxic people want immediacy. They want emotion now. When provoked by text or email, don't reply instantly. Let the urgency die. Time is your weapon. Use it. 3. Exit the conversation. If the temperature rises, if manipulation is thick in the air, walk away. No warning. No performance. No guilt. Say, I'm not available for this conversation. And leave. That one sentence delivers more power than an hour of explaining. Because now, they're left alone. With their tactics. With their mess. With no emotional supply to feed on. And when you consistently refuse to play, they stop inviting you to the game. But here's the warning. They'll escalate first. When you go neutral, they'll press harder. When you stop reacting, they'll provoke deeper. When you pull away, they'll try guilt, tears, rage, pity. Not because they care, but because they're losing grip. Desperation is the final move of the manipulator. And your only task is to stay the course. They cannot handle someone who refuses to absorb their chaos. They collapse in the face of psychological stillness. So hold the line. Be unreadable. Be untouchable. Because once they realize your patterns have changed, they'll have no choice but to face a terrifying truth. They no longer have control. When you become emotionally invisible, you become unbreakable. Your entire life, you were taught to be the peacemaker. Talk it out. Fix the problem. Be the bigger person. But here's what no one told you. In the hands of a toxic person, your empathy becomes ammunition. They expect your reaction. They expect your compassion. They expect you to come running back explaining, softening, apologizing. That's the pattern. That's their control. So what's the move? You flip the game. You do the one thing they never see coming. You stop engaging. You stop explaining. You stop saving them. This is the inversion move. It's not about confrontation. It's about withdrawal as a weapon. Toxic people thrive on connection. Not healthy connection, but control-based connection. They don't want your love. They want your reaction. They want to keep you in orbit, always circling their chaos. The inversion move is stepping out of that orbit. Calmly, quietly, completely. You become an emotional ghost. Present, but untouchable. Still, but impenetrable. And here's the truth. They'll notice instantly. The second you stop reacting, you become unreadable, unpredictable. And for someone who controls through your emotions, that is terrifying. You've taken the script they've rehearsed for years, and you've set it on fire. When they try to provoke you and you respond with, "That doesn't work for me. I'm not available for that." Or worse, nothing at all. They spiral, not because they care, but because they're losing leverage. This is where they push harder. They cry. They rage. They call you heartless. They beg you to just talk it out. But don't mistake the noise for love. It's withdrawal symptoms. They're detoxing from control. And the only thing you need to do is stay detached. Let them drown in their own storm. You don't owe anyone your emotional bandwidth. You don't owe an explanation for your silence. You don't need permission to protect your mind. Controlled disengagement is not coldness. It is self-defense. You are not punishing them. You are protecting yourself. Toxic people don't change when you help them. They change when they lose access to what they exploit. And when you become calm, calculated, unavailable, they face the one thing they never expected. Accountability. The less you respond to drama, the more dangerous you become. They used to dictate the rhythm. They spoke, you chased. They pulled, you followed. They criticized, you explained. Flip it. Now you set the pace. You respond when you want to. You disengage when needed. You don't chase. You evaluate. And when someone becomes more exhausting than valuable, you don't fight. You walk. No fireworks. No fights. No grand speeches. Just space. Silence. Distance. That's how power moves. Quietly, strategically, with zero apology. And that, right there, is what breaks them. Silence isn't weakness. It's not avoidance. And it's definitely not surrender. When used with intention, silence is a weapon, one of the deadliest you'll ever wield. Toxic people crave engagement. Not love, not understanding. Engagement. They want your attention. They want you to defend yourself. They want you tangled in the mess they create, explaining, justifying, chasing clarity. Why? Because every word you speak gives them more material. Every reaction reveals your insecurities. Every attempt to clarify your side exposes your need to be seen as good. Silence takes that power away. The most dangerous person in any room is the one who no longer needs to speak to be understood. When you go silent, you become unreadable. And unreadable people are impossible to control. You used to explain yourself. Now you pause. You used to argue back. Now you observe. You used to say, "Let me just clarify." Now you say nothing at all. The shift is seismic. They can't provoke what doesn't move. They can't argue with what won't respond. They can't manipulate what won't give them feedback. You are no longer part of their script. You don't need full silence in every case. Sometimes, the most brutal tactic is calculated minimalism. I see. That's your opinion. Interesting. No reply at all. Each wordless space leaves them grasping. They're used to pushing your buttons and getting immediate emotional feedback. When that stops, they flounder. They try harder. They push louder. They become obvious, and in that exposure, they lose their edge. When provoked via text or email, don't reply immediately. Let them wait. Let the energy dissolve. Let them realize that your world doesn't revolve around their drama. Time sends a message. I respond on my terms now, not yours. If a conversation turns toxic, escalate your silence. Not passive aggression. Not storming out. Just withdrawal. Say calmly, "I'm not engaging in this." Then walk away. Don't look back. Don't explain. Don't check if they're okay. Let them sit with the weight of their own behavior. This is where silence becomes discipline. You are no longer a participant in the chaos. You are an observer, a ghost, a locked vault. And when you master that posture, the dynamic shifts forever. Toxic people live off control. Silence removes control. They can't provoke you. They can't guilt you. They can't force you to react on cue. And that terrifies them more than any insult ever could. Silence is the revenge of the emotionally disciplined. It is not absence. It is presence without availability. You are still there, still powerful, but out of reach. Let them shout. Let them spiral. Let them choke on the silence they once used to hurt you. Because now, you've weaponized it. And when you speak again, if you ever do, it will not be to plead. It will be to declare. On your own time. On your own terms. Silence isn't the absence of sound. It's the presence of control. A single sentence, when precise, can shatter years of psychological conditioning. And in the world of toxic dynamics, sometimes all it takes is one sharp phrase to wake you up from the trance of self-sacrifice. So here are the truths you must burn into your nervous system. Repeat them, share them, etch them into your mental armor. These aren't affirmations. These are battle commands. 1. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Read that again. You don't exist to rescue people from their own storms. You are not required to burn through your emotional, physical, and mental reserves to keep someone else comfortable in their dysfunction. Self-destruction is not nobility. It's submission. 2. No is a complete sentence. No soft landing. No sugar-coating. No nervous laughter at the end. Just no. No follow-up. No context. No guilt. If someone cannot respect your no, they were never negotiating in good faith. 3. I am not available for that. Not I'm sorry. Not I wish I could. But just I'm not available. You're not available for drama. You're not available for manipulation. You're not available for disrespect. Your time is limited. Your peace is expensive. Your energy is not a public utility. 4. You've changed. Correct. The old you tolerated what the new you refuses to entertain. Let them say you're cold. Let them say you're selfish. Let them whisper that you've lost your empathy. Good. That means the mask is off. That means the game is over. 5. I don't explain myself to people who are committed to misunderstanding me. Let that land. You've been trying to convince people who don't care about clarity. You've been speaking to deaf ears. To people who weaponize your words. Walk away. You don't need their understanding. You need your own self-respect. 6. Peace is not passive. It is protected. You don't stumble into peace. You build it. You guard it. You fight for it. That means setting boundaries. That means walking away. That means being seen as the villain by people who only loved you when you didn't love yourself. And if that's what it takes, so be it. 7. Silence is strategy, not surrender. They think you're weak because you don't yell back. They think you're scared because you walk away. They think they've won because you didn't reply. They're wrong. You're silent because you've seen the entire playbook, and you refuse to act in it anymore. 8. You can love someone and still leave. Yes, you can still care. You can still wish them peace, and still choose never to speak to them again. Because love doesn't mean sacrifice. Love doesn't mean absorption. Love doesn't mean tolerating disrespect for the sake of history. You can release them. Without bitterness, without a performance, without a word. These phrases are not just words. They are psychological shields. And in a world of manipulation, clarity becomes your sharpest sword. Memorize them. Use them. And when the moment comes, speak them with zero tremble in your voice. Because a single sentence, delivered with complete certainty, can sever 1,000 invisible chains. Loop these truths in your mind until they become instinct. Then speak them like law. There comes a moment in every toxic relationship when your body says what your mouth won't. You lose sleep. You feel anxious before every interaction. You rehearse conversations that never go how you planned. You walk on eggshells. You shrink. You give more. And somehow, it's never enough. That moment when your nervous system begins to collapse under the weight of what you're tolerating is your mind begging you to wake up. But instead of leaving, you double down. You convince yourself it's not so bad. You blame yourself. You think, if I explain it better this time, maybe they'll understand. If I'm more patient, maybe they'll finally see what they're doing. If I love them hard enough, they'll change. But they don't, and you're left depleted, bitter, resentful, ashamed for staying this long, but terrified to walk away. Why? Because toxic attachment is not about love. It's about emotional addiction. You've become chemically tethered to the highs and lows. You stay for the rare moment of peace, while enduring oceans of chaos. You confuse tension with passion, drama with intimacy, control with care. You're in a loop, and the hardest part of that loop is admitting this. You knew, but you didn't want to know. You saw the red flags. You felt the emotional damage. You even whispered to yourself late at night, "This isn't right." But you stayed, because part of you believed the fantasy, that your love could heal them, that your loyalty would inspire change, that they would eventually become the person they once pretended to be. They won't. Not because they can't, but because they don't need to. As long as you stay, the performance is unnecessary. You stayed because it was familiar, because chaos was more comfortable than being alone, because walking away felt like failure. But here's the truth. You are not failing when you walk away. You are not cruel when you enforce peace. You are not selfish when you save yourself first. What's truly cruel is making yourself sick trying to be someone else's antidote. That breakdown, the anxiety, the exhaustion, the emptiness. It's not weakness. It's clarity. The system inside you is screaming, "This is not sustainable." You don't need more conversations. You don't need to find the perfect words. You don't need to explain why you're finally walking away. You only need one thing. Permission. Permission to protect your energy. Permission to outgrow the version of you that accepted less. Permission to leave not with anger, but with certainty. You don't owe anyone your continued suffering just because they once mattered to you. That is the emotional collapse. The death of the illusion. The moment you stop hoping for who they could be, and finally accept who they are. It's painful. It's messy. But it's also the start of something else. Your return to power. Because only after the collapse can you rebuild something stronger, boundaried, clear, and untouchable. Let them go. Let the fantasy die. And let your real self begin. Toxic people aren't complicated. They're predictable. They operate on patterns, triggers, and weaknesses. Yours, not theirs. The reason they keep winning isn't because they're smart. It's because you keep playing by emotional rules. While they play by power, it's time to rewrite your rulebook. Below are the non-negotiables. Not suggestions. Laws. Law 1. Anyone who gets angry when you set boundaries was benefiting from your lack of them. They're not upset because you've become cruel. They're upset because the game changed. They can no longer control the version of you who apologized for everything. You evolved, and they lost access. Good. Law 2. Loyalty without limits turns you into a servant, not a partner. You don't prove love through endurance. You don't prove your worth through suffering. People who respect you won't test how much pain you're willing to take. Only users do that. Law 3. You are not responsible for someone else's healing. You can care. You can support. But you cannot carry them. If they refuse to take responsibility for their pain, it becomes weaponized against you. That's not healing. That's emotional debt collection. Law 4. If you have to argue for your value, you're already surrounded by the wrong people. Respect is felt, not begged for. Validation is natural, not negotiated. The moment you start justifying your worth, you've already handed it over. Take it back. Law 5. Silence is not passive, it's calculated control. Silence is not what happens when you have nothing to say. It's what happens when you realize words are useless. You don't argue with a fire. You smother it. Law 6. Guilt is their leash. Let them drop it. Toxic people love guilt. It keeps you tethered. It makes you question every decision you make in your own best interest. Break the chain. You are not a villain for protecting your peace. Law 7. Closure is a self-delivered verdict, not a shared conversation. Stop chasing final words. You don't need them to understand. You don't need them to agree. You don't need them to say sorry. Closure is when you decide, this ends here, and mean it. Law 8. Time and access are privileges, not rights. Just because they had access to you in the past doesn't mean they're entitled to it in the future. People should earn their way into your life and lose their place when they violate it. Law 9. Emotional discipline is power. It's not about being cold. It's about being strategic. The one who stays calm, who chooses when to engage, who no longer dances when provoked, owns the room. Law 10. You are not the same person they manipulated before. You've seen the pattern. You've named the game. And now, you don't flinch when they try again. Because this time, you don't react. You respond. On your terms. With no emotion. No apology. No opening left for them to enter again. These laws aren't cruel. They're necessary. Because when someone feeds off your chaos, boundaries become your only act of war. Enforce them without emotion. And without exception. Fast forward 10 years. You're still trying. Still explaining. Still hoping they'll change. Still trapped in the same cycle. The same apologies. The same guilt. The same conversations that go nowhere. You've built your life around